Hello everyone, and welcome to your cryptocurrency week in review for the week of August 21st to August 27th. Starting with Bitcoin headlines, we saw significant mining oscillations between Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash. Miners switched between the two networks based off of profitability, as both networks use the SHA-256 hashing algorithm. As a result, ASICs built for the Bitcoin network also work for mining the Bitcoin Cash network. The profitability shifts between the two as difficulty is raised and lowered on the Bitcoin Cash network due to what is known as emergency difficulty adjustments. This protocol was put in place to attract miners to help support the network in the event of lengthy block times due to low hashing rate. Fork.lol, a website dedicated to illustrating these oscillations, shows just how severe the shifts in hashing power can be, and this graph shows that the hashing power for Bitcoin Cash goes quite low when the difficulty is high, and of course shifts when difficulty is low. As a result of this, transactions on the Bitcoin Cash network are either confirmed at lightning speeds due to high hashing rate relative to difficulty, or at sluggishly slow speeds due to high difficulty relative to the hash rate as a result of miners switching back to the Bitcoin network. And while Bitcoin Cash is hurt the most by this, the security and speed of the Bitcoin network also suffers as miners switch back and forth. The fork between Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash has been much more adversarial than the split we saw between Ethereum and Ethereum Classic. Moving forward, some key questions might include: will forks of the future be as contentious as miners seek profitability due to both cryptocurrencies utilizing the same hashing algorithm? Are emergency difficulty adjustments feasible if you are using the same hashing algorithm as another cryptocurrency? Do big blocks lead to centralization, or do they scale the network without concern? Is it possible for Bitcoin to lose its branding to a minority forked currency? Probably not here, right? But it is an important question for investors to consider because the value of Bitcoin would obviously go down quite a bit if the label Bitcoin were assigned to a minority forked currency. Moving on, SegWit is now active on the network, and SegWit transactions have been finding their way into many of the blocks mined in the last few days, except for some of the blocks mined by Antpool. Back in April, there was a large controversy around a technology called ASIC Boost, a way in which energy consumption can be reduced and the hashing rate of certain hardware can be boosted significantly. As such, a pool with access to this technology could increase their market share to levels unsafe for a decentralized network. Bitmain, the owner of Antpool, claims they have not and will not use this technology for the good of Bitcoin. It isn't compatible with SegWit transactions, however, so this begs the question of whether or not they were being honest. After all, they are the 800-pound gorilla in mining. In other news, BTCE, a Bitcoin Russian exchange cracked down by U.S. officials due to money laundering, has announced via the Bitcoin Talk forum that customers will be able to withdraw up to 55% of funds from the exchange when it is brought back online. And of course, the big question most people are having is, will it be brought back online? Many customers would be happy to receive any amount back, but this is of course still devastating to those who held balances at the exchange. BTCE also announced they will improve their communication with daily updates starting August 30th. The events related to BTC illustrate why it is recommended to stick with exchanges who comply with KYC and AML regulations, that is, Know Your Customer and anti-money laundering. The Prime Minister of Vietnam has approved a plan that will lay the groundwork for the acceptance of cryptocurrencies in the country. According to Cointelegraph, a draft of the legal framework should be completed in August 2018. They will also be working on taxation of cryptocurrencies, which is expected in June 2019. Acceptance of cryptocurrencies in Vietnam likely won't cause the same type of boon that Japan caused in April when it made cryptocurrencies a form of legal tender, but it is a step in the right direction, illustrating acceptance of these new digital assets in the Eastern world. Lastly, I just want to do a real quick discussion of some of the moves we've been seeing in the major cryptocurrencies over the last week. I'm going to go ahead and skip over Bitcoin because it's going to get its own separate slide, but starting off with Ethereum, the developers for Ethereum actually gave us some news on or more information, I should say, on the Metropolis update, and more particularly the first hard fork called the Byzantine fork. and that is scheduled for late September to late October, and it seems like the goal is really late September for the developers. And while this will introduce some interesting features like autonomy with smart contracts and some security upgrades, I actually think the value increase here with Ethereum mostly comes from just the news regarding the Metropolis update. I think really Ethereum has been kicked back in the news cycle recently, and coming back to the forefront a little bit kind of gave new money or sent new money into Ethereum. And so I actually I don't think it has a lot to do with any of the actual information. I think it really has to do with the fact that Ethereum is back in the news. Now, Ripple had a mystery update or a mystery announcement that they were kind of hyping up on Twitter, which drove the value of it all the way up to 30 cents, which at the moment I believe it's trading at somewhere between 20 and 21 cents. So it was up quite a bit from where it is right now, and you can see that it's still up quite a bit. What was the mystery announcement? Well, the mystery announcement was that they are going to be hosting an event called Swell on the same day as their competitor Swift's event, which is Sibos. And they're going to have some pretty big names there, like Ben Bernanke. You may have heard of him, right? Tim Berners-Lee, which is the inventor of the World Wide Web. However, investors were really expecting them to announce entry into China, or really just entry into another market in general, but mostly China. And there was a lot of excitement there, and the announcement didn't live up to expectations. So even though the value of Ripple is up quite a bit week over week, it was up quite a bit more earlier this week. Now, Litecoin is up quite a bit, and I think this is mostly because of the implementation of SegWit into Bitcoin, which sort of allows these two networks to be a lot more compatible with one another, which means that they will be a viable candidate for atomic swaps with the Lightning Network, and they're just going to be more interaction with them as layer 2 gets developed, right? And so as a result of that, the value of Litecoin's gone up quite a bit. The other reason I think Litecoin is up is because it's been, relative to the other coins, it's been quite stable. It hasn't moved all that much over the last month and a half or so. And so it didn't take much movement for new money to flood into this particular cryptocurrency. Now, Dash, I wasn't able to find a whole lot of information on it. I doubt it's evolution, because evolution is sort of a long-term thing relative to at least the cryptocurrency world. And I don't think it's any of the updates to the wallet. I honestly think a lot of the value might be coming from the proposal being made where and it's currently being funded by the Dash Treasury, basically for an advertisement slot on a television program. And if it were to happen, of course, it would reach a lot more people, and more people might invest in Dash. Who knows, right? We don't know for sure. And what's actually interesting is that because the value of Dash has gone up so much since the proposal was made, the person who made the proposal is actually going to get a lot more money from it than they actually originally requested. And, this is sort of an interesting part of Dash, is that the treasury portion of it, sometimes I think it's genius, and other times I think it's just not going to be able to allocate capital that efficiently. Time will see. However, it is definitely one of those cryptocurrencies, a lot of passion is there, so when big moves up happen, they get even further supported by people who already own the cryptocurrency. Now, the big news event this week really was Monero, though. It's up 139% week over week. And this is primarily because BitHum announced the introduction of Monero trading pairs onto their exchange. Of course, BitHum is the massive South Korean cryptocurrency exchange, pretty much the highest volume in the world among all the exchanges. And as a result, this is very akin to a stock getting added to the S&P 500. Right? A lot of new cash flows will get sent to Monero simply because it's getting put onto this fund, or onto this exchange. However, Monero went up way too much, way too fast. So I would say sell at this point. I just don't see it being able to sustain these levels. It's already started to drift off of its highs, and I just don't see it being a long-term value proposition at these current levels. Now, lastly here, I want to talk about the big one, which is Bitcoin. And really not much has happened. It's traded it's sort of been a consolidation phase between $4,000 and $4,500. The big event was actually earlier in the week, where Bitcoin actually dipped down to around $3,600. On CoinMarketCap here, and that's where I got this graph, you see it only goes down to 37.50, but it actually went down significantly lower on a number of different exchanges, especially GDAX, which is the one that I like to use. So it went down quite a bit, but then all the buyers started flooding in at around 3,600. So while I'm not a technical analyst, or I don't particularly love technical analysis, I will say that it does seem like 3,600 is a key support level at this time for Bitcoin. In addition, of course, Bitcoin hit the top of its all-time highs a few times this week, really flirting with that 4,500 level, but not quite able to break it. And lastly here, I just want to talk about BitConnect, because this, in my opinion, is the most obvious Ponzi scheme of all time, and yet people defend it profusely. So I just want to say to anybody thinking about investing in it, stay away from it, okay? Stay away from it. They have a miraculous trading bot which generates over 1% daily on average, and sometimes over 2%, which is just ridiculous. It's not possible to do this that consistently, and yet people still believe it. But anyway, BitConnect was hacked basically, and the hackers redirected the Bitcoin addresses that normally go to BitConnect over to their Bitcoin addresses. As to whether or not this was a fluke, which is what BitConnect claims, I'm not sure, okay? I don't know whether or not this hack was legitimate or not. What I can say is that the whole BitConnect platform is exceptionally shady. If you come from the finance world, you know that the whole 1% daily thing is a complete myth, okay? 1% daily, I believe, is like 37,000% a year, and forget it if you go over 2 years, assuming that you're compounding that interest daily. So it's an absurd amount of money that BitConnect is producing. I recommend that if you are lending them money right now, as soon as you can get your principal back, get it back, and then don't reinvest it. That's all I'm going to say for now. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and let me know what you think, the format of it, and whether or not it was informational or useful for you. And I hopefully will see you in the next week's Week in Review.